.NET 8 and C# 12 has been released and it's time to update. We'll show you how to update Visual Studio, download the SDK and create a project. Hit the subscribe button as we look at .NET 8. Visual Studio 2022 needs to be updated to version 17.8 or above. In order to do that, we click on Help and we go for Check for Updates. If there's an update, we need to go ahead and update it. It should be version 17.8 or above. In order to know whether you've got the .NET 8 SDK, you can run this command line, .NET-list-SDKs. This will list all the SDKs, and if you've got 8.0.100 or above, you've got it installed. Updating Visual Studio should automatically download the .NET 8 SDK. However, if you don't use Visual Studio, you'll need to download it. You can do a search for .NET 8 and you'll arrive on this page and you can go ahead and install the appropriate installer depending on your operating system. If you're updating IIS to use .NET 8, you'll need to go ahead and update the Windows hosting model. In order to create a new .NET 8 project in Visual Studio, we go to File, New and Project, select the appropriate template. So we're going to create an ASP.NET Core Web API. We can add the project name and solution, and for the framework we should be able to select .NET 8. To update an existing project to run on .NET 8, we need to right-click on the project and go to Edit Project File and make sure that the target framework is set to .NET 8. Now, Keyed Services is one of the new features of .NET 8, where you can use dependency injection to add multiple implementations of the same service. Let's have a look at it. With .NET 8, there's these new extension methods added to the iService collection. For the scope service lifetime is add key scoped. There's also one for the singleton and transient. Within that, there's a service key parameter. This is a type of object, so it can be a string or an integer, for example. To inject a key service into a minimal API endpoint, we need to add this from key services attribute. Within it, there's a parameter where we have to specify the key. For this one, we specify car, so it's going to inject the car service. That is because we've added the car service implementation with a key of car. This one will be motorbike because we're using the motorbike service with a key of motorbike. If we run that minimal API endpoint, we can see it's returning the correct number of wheels. It's a similar story with MVC and Web API endpoints. Once again, we need to add the from key services attribute and specify the key. This will return the number of wheels depending on which implementation that we're using. It's also possible to get the key service instance from the iService provider. Here we're injecting the iService provider into this Web API controller. In order to do that, we call this getRequiredKeyService. There's also a getKeyed service if you just want to return null if there's no instance. Within both of them, there's this parameter where we need to specify the service key. We can see it's returning the correct response. C# 12 brings the spread operator, allowing collection types to be joined into one. Watch that video next to find out how you can join collection types together.